Hello, guys. I'm glad we're back. It's Monday, May 4th, and we are doing the rest of the lessons this week, and Friday will be your last quiz. Next week, I know we don't get out of school until May 15th, but next week is makeup days, making sure you have everything in, getting a hold of your teacher if you do make something up, those types of things. So today we're going to talk about geometric sequences. This is going to be a 2-day thing. The first day sequences, the second day series. And so we're going to start with, what does a geometric sequence mean? It's a pattern that is formed by multiplying each term by the same value, called the common ratio. Common ratio is denoted by R to create the next term. Remember that dividing by n is the same as multiplying by 1 over n. So on geometric sequences, you always multiply. So if you see okay, you see this sequence. Well, what's happening each time? Well, I can tell that I'm dividing by 2. 2 is not my common ratio. If I divide by 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So you always have to use the multiplying number. All right, so next we're going to determine whether each sequence could be arithmetic, geometric, or neither. If possible, find the common difference or common ratio. So on this first one, remember I said for arithmetic, I'm going to subtract the second minus the first, and then the third minus the second. You're going to do the same thing here. You're going to take the second divided by the first to see if it's geometric. So if I subtract here, 8 minus 2 is 6. 32 minus 8 is not 6. So I know it's not arithmetic. Okay, let's try geometric. So if I take 8, the second number, divided by the first, I get 4. If I take the third divided by the second, I get 4. These are the same. That means it is a geometric sequence, and your R is 4. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay, on the next one, if I take 4 minus 1, I get 3. 9 minus 4 is 5, so I know it's not arithmetic. Let's try geometric. Take the second divided by the first, I get 4. Take the third divided by the second, do I get 4? I do not. So this is going to be a neither. Now, just because I want to show you something, on the neithers, they don't follow a rule, but I know that this is the first term, the second term, the third term, and the fourth term. My first term is 1, my second term is 4, my third term is 9, my fourth term is 16. So you should see that n squared is going to be your formula. Okay, let's try the next one. All right, so if I take 4 minus negative 4, I get 8. Negative 5 minus 4, I get negative 9. It's not arithmetic. So then we're going to divide. What's 4 divided by negative 4? I get negative 1. Negative 5 divided by 4 is not negative 1. So it's not geometric. So here again, it's going to be neither. All right, here's a fun one. Fractions, you all love fractions. So to tell whether it's arithmetic, I'm going to subtract 2 minus 4/3. I got to have a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be 3. So that's going to give me 6/3 minus 4/3. I get 2/3. Now I'm going to take the third minus the second. 8/3 minus 2. Remember, I got to get a common denominator. So what is 8/3 minus 6/3? It's 2/3. These did come out the same. I was subtracting, so that means this is arithmetic. And my common difference is going to be 2/3. Last but not least, I automatically know right off the bat that this is not going to be arithmetic. The reason I know that is because it goes from a negative number to a positive number back to a negative number. And you can't do that if you're going on a line. So let's take 6 divided by -2. I get -3. -18 divided by 6 is -3. So this would be a geometric sequence with your R value being -3. All right, get ready to get your formula sheet. You're going to be writing down this formula. So for geometric sequence, this is our explicit formula. A sub n equals A sub 1 times R. Remember, R is our common ratio to the n minus 1. N stands for your number of terms. So if you need to pause the video to write this down, please do so on your formula sheet. All right, so we are going to write the rule for the nth term of the sequence, then find the requested term of the geometric sequence. So the first thing I have to do, since it told me it is geometric, I have to find my R. To get my R, I take my second term divided by my first term. When I do that, I get 1/10. So I know that R equals 1/10. So A sub n equals A sub 1 times R to the n minus 1. If I'm writing a rule, the n stays there. So I have everything to write this rule. A sub n equals, my first term is 70,000. My R is 1/10 to the n minus 1. And that right there is your rule. Now, let's find our 8th term, because I am looking for this. A sub 8 equals 70,000 times 1/10 to the 8 minus 1. So on a calculator, a scientific calculator, you're going to put in 70,000 times 1/10 to the 7th power. Can I multiply these and then take it to the 7th power? No. The only thing that you can take to the 7th power is that 1/10. So when you put this in your calculator, you should get 7 over 1,000. Okay, if it's a decimal, remember you do have a key to change it to be a fraction. All right, let's go to the next one. It says it's geometric, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 20, or not 20, that's not my first term, or my second term. I'm going to take -10 divided by 5, and I get -2. So my R value is -2. A sub n equals A sub 1 times R to the n minus 1. A sub n equals, what's my first term? It's 5 times -2 to the n minus 1. On our rules, we leave the n in there. because it's going to be an equation. Now I have to find the 12th term. So 5 times negative 2 to the 12 minus 1. So a sub 12 is going to be 5 times negative 2 to the 11th. And on your scientific calculator, you put this in. Remember that negative 2 is to the 11th power, not these multiplied. So you should get negative 10,240 as your 12th term. All right, we're just plugging everything into the formula. Okay, next it says, write a rule for the nth term of the sequence. It gives us the second term and our r. But to put it into my formula, I need the first term and my r. So what can we do? Well, we can find our first term by putting in the second term. And remember, if my n is 2, I'm going to put 2 minus 1 up here. So now all we have to do is plug in everything. My second term is 2 equals a sub 1 times my r is 1/3 to the first. So 2 equals 1/3 a sub 1. To get rid of my 1/3, I can multiply each side by 3. So 6 equals my first term. Now I have my first term, I have my r, I can put it in my formula. A sub n equals 6 times 1/3 to the n minus 1. There we go. Okay. We have a few more problems to do. Write a rule for the nth term of the geometric sequence. Okay, so my a sub 2 is negative 4. My a sub 5 is negative 256. Here's something that you need to know. A sub n equals a sub m times r to the n minus m. Okay, so this is if you're not given the ratio and you're not given the first term. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this the m and this the n values. All right. So my a sub n is negative 256 equals my a sub m is negative 4. I do not know my ratio. And my n value is 5 minus my m value, which is 2. So we have negative 256 equals negative 4 times r to the third power. So I need to solve for r. To solve for r, we're going to divide by negative 4 on each side, and that gives us 64 equals r to the third. How do I get rid of the exponent of 3? Well, I take the cube root of each side, and r turns out to be 4. So now I can put it in, and I'm going to have to find my first term also. So to find your first term, I could take your second term I can take the second term and instead of multiply by 4, I could divide this by 4 and I get the answer to be -1. So my first term equals -1. So now I'm going to put it into a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. A sub n equals -1 times 4 to the n minus 1. And there is our formula, our rule. Okay. Here we go again. All right. So remember we have a sub n equaling a sub m times r to the n minus m. Your first term is always going to be the m value, and then the last term that you have is going to be the n value. So what is my a sub n? It's going to be 48. My a sub m is going to be 768 times r to the 4 minus 2. All right, so that gives us 48 equals 768 times r to the second power. So we have to get rid of this 768. We're going to get 1/16. Keep it as a fraction so we can find the exact value, equals r squared. How do I get rid of a squared? Well, I square root each side. And when I do that, you got to remember, when I take the square root, I'm going to get plus or minus. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 16 is 4. So I'm actually going to have two different equations that this one could be. So now what we need to do is we need to find our first term. Remember, we're multiplying by plus or minus 1/4. So I need to take my second term and I'm going to divide it by plus or minus 1/4. When I do that, I'm going to get plus or minus 3,072. So my first term can be plus or minus 3,072. Okay, so here comes two different equations. A sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. So a sub n equals, if my first term is a positive 3,072, that means that this would be a positive number going to be a positive number. I'd have to multiply by a positive number. So that's going to give me the positive 1/4. Or a sub n equals, remember we said that this could also be negative 3,072. If I go from a negative number to a positive number, I'd have to be multiplying by a negative 1/4. So these two equations are both the rules for this example. All right, we have one more and then we're done. Woohoo, look at this. Here is what geometric looks like. Geometric is an exponential. We talked about that before, but Now you can actually see the graph. It's an exponential graph, and we also have the table over here. So to write the rule, I need my first term, which is going to be located right here. N is 1, and my first term is 4. I also need my R value. So remember, to get my R value, I'm going to take the second divided by the first, and it should equal the third divided by the second. So my second term is 8. 8 divided by my first, which is 4, I get 2. Let's make sure that that works. So 16 divided by 8 is also 2. So, yep, my R is 2. Now, let's write this out. A sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. A sub n equals 4 times 2 to the n minus 1. There we go. All right, guys. Remember, if you have any questions, get a hold of your teachers. And this is our last week of lessons. Woohoo! So we are going to try to finish strong. You will have a quiz at the end of this week, review on Thursday.